Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so delighted to introduce my guest today, Alisa Barcan. Alisa is a financial coach and consultant based in the UK. She helps people rewrite their financial stories. Alisa works with professionals and small business owners who wish to decipher their finances and improve their financial situation and relationship with money. She is a regular contributor to Harvard Business Review Ascend, a prize winner, chartered certified accountant, and a qualified coach from the University of Cambridge, UK. Please join me in welcoming Alisa Barcan. Hey, Alisa.
Hi, Tammy. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a delight to have you. So, Alisa, you are originally from Romania. You now reside in the UK. Tell us a little bit about your earlier years and how you ended up in the UK and what was your career trajectory like?
Yes, I'm originally from Romania. And looking back now, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, if I would leave my country, that just wasn't an option. Not because I didn't think I could do it, but I just never thought about it. So it happened that my partner, who is still my partner to this day, got offered a Ph.D. scholarship in the UK. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to move to this country now. So I moved to the UK just after finishing university. And up until then, I had studied political science, international relations. It was around 2007 when Romania entered the European Union, and therefore this was a very topical subject for us. And I thought, oh yes, I'll be able to bring my contribution to Romania entering the EU, and I was really excited about it. So I came into the UK to do a master's, similar type of subject, international political communication, advocacy and campaigning. And when I finished that master's, I found myself caught up in the bureaucracy of a new country joining the European Union, which meant that in the UK, I actually needed a work permit to be able to work here.
Oh.
And although I qualified for that permit immediately, because I was a graduate from a higher level institution in the UK, I had to wait for an entire year before that permit got to me. And therefore, it meant that for an entire year, I wasn't able to work. So I was here, unemployed, relying on my partner's scholarship, but it was a very difficult time. And it was a time that allowed me to really think about things. And I did some volunteering work and just occupying my time so I don't go completely crazy waiting for this permit. And whilst I was doing that, I was volunteering for a local charity. And they had some of these free tests. They had a few of them. The government basically gave you the opportunity to work with a career advisor and to do some tests so that you can choose a career after you finished your studies. And the people I was working with, they told me, would you like to do one of these tests? Because we don't have anyone here that wants to do them. And if we don't use it, we will lose it next year. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll do one of the tests. So I went and spent an entire day doing these tests. And it came back with a report suggesting what kind of work I should be doing. And there was nothing about politics in there, let's just put it that way. Every suggestion I received was finance related. A bank underwriter, an insurance broker, whatever. And the lady that I spoke to, the career advisor, she said, have you ever considered a career in finance? And I looked at her thinking, oh, I've been studying for the past 5 years, doing a completely different subject. No, I have not considered a career in finance. And she said, that's okay. You can join as a graduate and they will teach you anything that you need to know. So in the beginning, I was very confused by this. And I said, they don't know what they're talking about. Yes, I do have abilities, but I don't want to do this. This is not the career I've chosen for myself. However, I said, let me just apply to one job, one graduate job in finance. If I get it, then it means it must be a sign from above. If I don't, I'll never apply to any more, and I won't waste my time doing this kind of thing. I've wasted enough doing this test. So I applied to this job, and I got it.
Now, you had your work permit at that point already? Is that?
The work permit actually arrived a few days after I got offered the job.
Oh.
And yeah, so it was such a stressful time. But I got offered the job. I was the only one who applied who did not have a finance background. And yet I was the only one who was offered the job. So I thought, okay, maybe the lady was right. And maybe this is a sign that I should consider a career in this. And I said to myself, you know what, now I've got the permit. If I don't like this job, I just won't stay in it. And I'll find another one now because I've got the permit and I can just go and apply for jobs. But I did like it. I liked it a lot. And immediately after I started, I was offered the possibility to study for a chartered accountancy and to become a qualified accountant. So I said yes to that. And 2.5 years later, I was a qualified accountant.
Wow. That is quite a story. You know, I can imagine as you look back on that period of time where you were waiting for this work permit, you were wholly committed to, following your path in political science. And then just by happenstance, you happen to take these tests that tell you that you have a proclivity for another skill set. And I like the way you questioned it at first, though, that you said, it may be that I have some strengths in this area, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to like it. And that you gave yourself a chance to explore it and stay open-minded about it. But the distinction between being good at something and actually liking it is an important distinction. And a lot of people don't always look at things that way. They think that if they're good at it, it's something that they're supposed to do. And so it's great that you ended up liking it, but it's also great that you were giving yourself the opportunity to walk away from it if it turned out that it really wasn't for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, at that point, I really needed to bring in some income. And therefore, I would have gone for any job, if I'm honest. It just so happened to be the job that I ended up doing for a few years before eventually deciding to not practice accountancy anymore. But yeah, I think it's really important, the distinction between I like this versus I am good at it, but it bores me to death.
Right. I'm curious if you ever asked that employer, given that they interviewed all these people who had the skill set and yet they chose you without the skill set. Did you ever find out why they decided to offer you the position?
Yes, I did not ask them directly, but I think I know why it was. First of all, when you apply for graduate jobs, I had to go through a whole assessment day, and that included psychometric tests, so numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, abstract reasoning, everything else. Also, the interviewer, who ended up being my line manager, and I had quite a good connection. And I'm not going to lie, in an interview, this counts for a lot more than someone who has the skills. They were interviewing for graduate roles, and they were prepared to train these people into accountancy so that they can get the skills that they needed. What they were looking for was, can this person do the job? Therefore, let's look at psychometric tests. And will they fit in with the team? Therefore, how good is our interaction? What's my vibe around them?
Yeah.
Also, you have to remember, I had an entire year where I was preparing for these interviews that never came because people wouldn't ask me to come for an interview. Their first question was, do you have a work permit? No, I don't. But yet I was preparing for when that time would arrive. Mm-hmm. And I was really good at interviewing, and I still am. I was good at interviewing my entire career. And I think that also makes a difference, especially for a graduate role, where actually your ability to do the job can be very easily predicted via those psychometric tests and all the tests that they gave us during the assignment day. And one funny thing, like I was quite new to the UK, and we had to do a communication test, and they gave us a map which was in Welsh. Now, I didn't know the language, and I thought, oh, look at this. This must be an invented language because I could not imagine how people would read those words, which were mostly consonants one after the other. And I thought, they must have invented this map specifically so that we can play this game. Then I found out, no, it's a Welsh map. So get over yourself.
You thought they were checking like your decoding skills or something.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's really interesting. So when you say a graduate role, was this, what do you mean? They were looking for someone with a graduate school background, or because it was a private sector job, right?
Yeah. So, sorry, I was using British terminology here. So just to explain, a graduate role is an entry-level job, but the person who gets the job is required to have at least a bachelor's degree.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Graduate.
Yeah, that is definitely not an American term. Okay. I understand. So that, yeah, there's an important point that you're bringing up in this insight about why you think you got hired, that I think there's actually research that actually points to this as well in terms of how people get hired. And it is about having a good connection with somebody. It is about that chemistry, so to speak. Because there are a lot of people out there who have the skills that the employer's looking for. So the next level of what they're really looking for is this somebody that we can work with? Is this the kind of person who will be a good fit on our team? And as an interviewee, you can't always fit yourself into that. You don't always know exactly what they're looking for. And it's challenging when you go in for a job interview to know. You really can't know unless you have a tremendous amount of inside information. It's hard to know how you can conduct yourself in that interview to demonstrate that you're going to be a good fit on that team. And I know a lot of people worry about those kinds of things, but that seems like a spot on explanation as to what occurred in that situation, given that you were the only candidate who had none of the work experience that some of the other candidates seem to have. So, so how long were you in that role?
Well, the graduate role was actually a rotating role. So It was a temporary 2-year contract. And for the first 3 months, I was in accounts payable. For the next 3 months, I was in accounts receivable. Then I moved. So basically, I moved all the way into the finance department through all of their departments. And at the end of, probably after a year and a half, I secured a permanent position with them. So then I stayed in the team where I got that position. But it was a very good role because it taught me everything from the beginning until the end. How do you process invoices? How do you pay them? How do we process the money that's received, and so on, all the way to, this was a housing association, so I did service charge accounting, all sorts of interesting things. And if I didn't have this rotational role, I probably wouldn't have had the bigger picture of what's happening inside the department rather than inside just the team.
Right. So that was a really great opportunity for really getting the depth and the breadth of experience that you needed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially since they were also offering me the possibility to become a chartered qualified accountant, to actually learn the theory behind that and apply it whilst I was working.
Wow. So we know that you're no longer at that company.
That's right. So after doing a few accountancy roles within that company, I decided that I wanted to change a little bit. And there was a department within the company that was change management. And I became an assistant business analyst for that department. It was a completely different story, right? I still used the skills that I had in terms of analysis and Excel skills and so on, but it was more face-to-face than it was behind a desk, hiding and just crunching the numbers. With this one, I had to go and speak to colleagues within other departments and see what they were struggling with, what kind of processes they had in place, document those processes and see whether we could improve them or just make them smoother, make them better for the end customer and so on. So I spent probably about 8 months doing that before I found another role for a much bigger company, and I decided that I'm going to move into that role. So I moved into a business operations analyst role, and my job was to basically I was the only finance person in the team, and my job was to make sure that all of the revenue and all of the money that we were generating was recorded properly, that it was reported properly, and that it wasn't missed. And that was a big issue. And before leaving that company the year prior to that, my work made a 7-figure contribution in terms of what would have been lost revenue if I wouldn't have been there to dig it out and to say, hey, what about this?
Wow. So what was the period of time between when you started in that graduate role and the time period when you saved that company, that was a different company, you saved them all that money?
It was probably 5 years.
Wow.
5 years.
So, wow, that's pretty quick actually in some ways, right? So I'm curious. I mean, clearly you were eager to learn. There was a real growth trajectory for you as you move through these different roles, it sounds like. What made you decide to move from the company where you got your sort of your sea legs, so to speak, and then move to that other company where you were the only person with the financial background? What made you decide to make that change?
When I was in the change management team, we had the privilege, sometimes the curse, to find out about things before other people did, because we were there to implement those changes. And I was finding out about redundancies that were coming. I was finding out about departments that were being shut down. And I quickly realized, okay, this is probably not the best place to be in 2 years from now.
I see.
And I decided, you know what, I'm going to anticipate and actually make my move right now. Of course, there was an opportunity for me to go too.
Yes.
And that helped. But seeing what I saw, I decided to leave. And actually, last year it was announced that that company was acquired by a different one, and the whole finance department was shut down, and now they don't exist anymore.
Right.
And there were a lot of redundancies happening and a lot of cuts. So I don't regret making that move.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious what was motivating you. I love to ask people those questions because for my listeners, I want them to see that there's a variety of ways that people make decisions about when they're going to make that pivot or that change. And there are different factors that might drive those decisions. And it sounds like you weren't unhappy where you were, but you saw some things going on in the environment that were about to change, and you decided to take care of yourself and make sure you were going to move to a situation that might have more stability. And it sounded like also some other opportunities for career advancement as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, I haven't had a huge career, but I was lucky enough to not be in a position where I was completely unhappy in any of the roles that I've had. But in addition to my motives for moving, I've always had this thing where I'm very relentless in a way. So I get into a new job. It usually takes me about 6 months before I can do that job with no problem at all. And then I'm always asking myself, and now what?
Uh-huh.
And that was the case during my entire career. So in my 6 years career, 6.5, whatever it was, before I decided to start my own business, what had happened was that if you calculate how many times I went for interviews, I was doing an interview on average every 6 months.
Wow.
Because I just couldn't sit still for long enough to see where the job would take me if I didn't think that there was an immediate opportunity for me to take a step up.
Mm. And yet it sounds like the impetus to look at what was next wasn't really coming from a place of discontent, maybe a little bit of restlessness, but not, it was more just you're always looking for something new, a little different, a place to grow. And if you can't see it in your immediate environment, you look for it elsewhere, it sounds like.
Yeah, that was the case up until my very last job as an employee. And I think looking back now, and we're all wiser in hindsight, aren't we? But
yes, we are.
Looking back now, I think I was looking for something in these jobs that I was never going to find unless I started my own business.
So what do you think what it is that you were looking for?
I think I was looking for a role or a job, some work that would give me the opportunity to have an idea implemented immediately, to drive the work wherever I wanted it to go, and to not have to answer to anyone else for the decisions that I was making. I wasn't a bad employee, but I did not like having a boss. I never liked that because I'm quite, I wouldn't say confrontational, but I am quite strongly opinionated, and I feel quite strongly about the things that I want to implement. And of course, in a company, you can't just go and make changes just because you think they're good changes. And there might be very good changes, but there's an approval process, and there's a budget approving that needs to happen before you can do any of that. And for me, that process was just too long.
Yeah.
And I couldn't bring myself to wait for that long. I thought, you know what? I know this idea is good now. If you delay it by a couple of months, it will be obsolete, because that's how quickly things change, especially in some of the companies that I worked for. They were technology companies. So if you don't implement right now, then you can kiss the idea goodbye.
Yeah. So 6.5 years you were an employee.
I was.
And then in 2017, you said, time to no longer be an employee?
Yeah, well, when I started the business, I was still an employee, and I ran it
Okay.
alongside my day job for quite a while.
Oh, okay.
Until I noticed that it was consuming me and my social life and everything else. And I decided, I was still under the impression that I'm looking for something within my job, that something's missing because of my job. So I moved jobs a little bit before I realized, hold on a second, this is not the problem. The problem is I have the business. This is what I'm looking for. It's me focusing on the business 100% and being able to implement and being able to dedicate all of my time and put my creative ideas into practice inside of my business rather than inside of a company. But of course, it took time before the business was generating enough revenue for me to be able to replace my work as an employee and my job and my salary with what was coming in via my business.
So some people, when they leave full-time employment to start a business, they don't always wait to replace the income. They take more of a leap or a risk. It sounds like for you really wanted to make sure you had a way to replace that income.
Well, I think I wouldn't be a good accountant or a good financial coach if I didn't think of the numbers before I made the jump.
Yeah.
And actually, I made the jump a lot earlier than I had anticipated. So I was giving myself a deadline of 2 years, and it happened 1 year earlier.
I see. Well, congratulations on that. And I also know that you decided to also study coaching as a part of your preparation for self-employment, it sounds like. So tell us a little bit about the decision to study coaching on top of all that you had done to develop your financial skills.
Yeah, so in 2017, that was a very good year for me at work, and everyone was congratulating me and saying how good my work was, how proud they were of me and my results and so on. And in all honesty, all I could think of was, is this it? Is this all there is? And I struggled with that for a while because, I had this good job. I was young. I was on an upward trajectory, and yet I was unsatisfied with my work. And there were no apparent reasons why I would be unsatisfied. So I struggled with that for a while, and it took me a lot of internet searching and soul searching before I could find out what is it that's bothering me and what could I do about it. And what was bothering me the most was the impact that I was making was not significant enough, in my opinion. So although it was financially significant, because as I said to you, I was contributing quite a lot financially to the company, I didn't think that it was impacting anything else other than the bottom line of that company. And for me, it started to bother me quite a lot. So when I discovered financial coaching, because I still wanted to be able to use the skills that I had learned, but just in a different capacity. So when I discovered financial coaching was a thing, I didn't even know what that was. I went and did a short course on it, and I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then, of course, I realized that, well, a short course is not going to teach me everything that I need to know in order to be a competent coach. So I took it one step further, and I enrolled and did a qualification with the University of Cambridge. And this was whilst I was still employed, but I knew the moment I encountered financial coaching, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So I started up the company right then. And then it took me 1 year to study for the coaching qualification. And I won't mention the toll that took on my life socially and personally, because I was working full time, I was studying for the qualification, and seeing clients at the same time, because I wanted to practice the financial coaching, and it was a requirement of my qualification as well. So I had disappeared off the map for a year.
Well, even though you said you don't want to mention it, you kind of just did. And I know what that feels like, because much earlier in my career, I was working full time and going to graduate school at night. And I remember those days of feeling like, well, I have a very full life, and yet I feel like I don't have a life at all.
Yeah.
And yet you were clear about your goal and what you were working on, and it felt so right. And, it's interesting. I was just reflecting a little bit back on the transition you made from working in accounting to then becoming an analyst, and some of the skills that you started to incorporate at that point in your career, where you started to interact more with people, that you weren't just at the desk behind the computer. And I can imagine that might have also, at some point at least, fed your soul a little bit more, where you got to work more with people and, really integrate more people skills into your work in that way. And that might have also helped you to identify, once you learned about coaching, where you started to see, oh yeah, I need to not just affect the bottom line. I need to interact with people and help people to make better decisions about their own money and their own resources, right? And so I know then you went full-time on your own last February
Yes.
2019. And how's that going now?
It's going great. It's so good being your own boss. At the same time, it's so bad, right? Like,
how so?
I had to really learn how to put some boundaries in place, because especially in the beginning, I was working extremely long hours. Because I have an office that is actually inside my house, there was no separation between my life and my business life, or my life as a business owner, if you want. So I would find myself at 10 o'clock at night still working. When I was employed, that would have never happened. I had some really clear boundaries that I had to negotiate and that I had to fight for. I had to learn to make time for my health, because once you work for so long, your body kind of starts to pull some alarm bells and say, hey, you need to go to the gym, or you haven't been out in days. Like, you haven't had fresh air. You don't even know if it's cold or warm outside. What's going on?
And I know, and also I think, because you have, there is this part of you that's always, I bet even in your own business, you're always saying, what's next? What's next? Right?
Yeah.
It's, there's so many exciting things that you can do when you're a business owner. And I know that you've taken on some exciting things in the past year. And I'm going to name a couple of them right now, and you can tell us a little bit about them, because I know that your business is not just, singularly coaching individuals around their finances. I know that you're building a brand, and that you are trying to reach, a broader range of people, and that you've taken on quite a few things. So one is, you have an amazing YouTube channel, and you are sharing your own story and creatively sharing your message. And then I know that very soon you'll be teaching at the University of Cambridge. Congratulations on getting that assignment. You'll be teaching a course in the fundamentals of building a financially viable business. So you'll be teaching, people who are starting their own businesses as well. So there's a lot of exciting things in terms of your what's next. So tell us a little bit about those.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. It is exciting, and I am excited to be able to have an idea and then take it to implementation straight away and see the results from it. So I say straight away, but my YouTube channel has been in my mind for a while, and then I am a person who needs to analyze, perhaps overanalyze. So it's been a few months in the making before I got used to the platform and how to do it and what's the best practice and so on. And I have been releasing one video per week since then, where I talk about money, but I talk about money in a more wider context. So it's not just personal and business finances, but I try to incorporate financial well-being topics in there, and the biggest of them all, which is money mindset, where it all starts. So I'm really excited about the project. I am still learning. I am playing with all the tools and optimizing my sound and my video and doing intros and so on. But mostly what I'm happy about is that I'm able to convey this message on a platform that has the potential of being seen by so many people.
Yes.
We were talking about impact. That is my goal. My goal is to impact as many people as I can with my message and with the things that I have learned and applied with myself and with my clients. Because I can't work with everyone, and not everyone can work with me or want to work with me, afford to work with me, and so on. So I do want to give them something that's not just in written format like I have on LinkedIn, and I've been doing that for a couple of years now, but I want people to see me and a little bit of my personality maybe. So on YouTube, I have started to share a little bit about myself, which is not something that I have done before. So it feels vulnerable, but it feels good. And the response from my audience has been good so far. So I'm pleased with that.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then, and we will have links to all of these things that you're doing in the show notes. So tell us about your teaching now. You're in anticipation of teaching at the University of Cambridge.
Yes, I know. I'm still pinching myself. But yes, I qualified as a coach with the University of Cambridge. And now I'm going to go back in the same building where I qualified and actually teach other people who are coaches, consultants, service providers, who are very good at what they do, but not necessarily have the business skills that they need in order to build a financially viable business. So you can see how I'm bringing together my experience as a coach and as a business owner, but also my skills and my experience as an accountant. And I'm putting all of that into this course to show people how they can go about doing it right from the very beginning. Because a financially viable business is a profitable business, but not every profitable business is financially viable. So there's a distinction there that not many people know, not many people understand, and I want to help as many professionals as possible to start up a business in the right way from the beginning and not spend years struggling before they find out that they could have done it in a different way, and they would have gotten to where they want to be much quicker and much easier.
That's going to be so valuable to so many people. I'm so excited for everything that you're doing, and I'm so glad we had a chance to talk today and learn about your journey and where it's going. And I'm really excited to see what it's even going to look like a year from now. I can only imagine you're going to continue to reach more and more people, I can tell. So
yes, that's the goal. So my goal for 2020 is increase the impact.
Yeah.
Whether that's via my YouTube channel, via the courses that I will do, the speaking engagements that I will do. I want to reach more people, which is why I can see already that my business model is moving away a little bit from one-to-one work and more into one-to-many and group work so that I can touch more people.
Right. Well, Alisa, thank you so much for spending this time with me today. But we will be putting this out there so that it will get to many, and everything will be in the show notes so people will know how to reach you and learn more about your work.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for having me as a guest, and thank you to everyone who's listening.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Alisa Barcan. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her professional and international journey. What is your key takeaway from our interview? Is there something you'll put into action that you'll benefit from for years to come? Share what resonated with you in the show notes at workfromtheinsideout.com. Look for episode 059. That's also where you'll find all the links and resources from today's podcast. If you were inspired by this episode with Alisa, please share it with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss next week's show. Remember, subscribing is always free. Are you enjoying the podcast? I'd love to read your review on Apple Podcasts. It's easy to find through my website at www.tammygoulerloeb.com/podcast. Just click on the Apple Podcast button or follow the instructions provided there. Thanks for listening, and remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. And who knows, maybe you'll be my next interview on this podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, you can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.